Hello, fellow fantasy sports fans. Welcome to MFSN The Hub's Fantasy Baseball Waiver Wire Show every Thursday at 4:45 p.m. Eastern, 1:45 p.m. Pacific. I'm Dr. Dan Ratner, back after COVID knocked me flat on my ass for a long time. And here I am with Kasey, Vlad to the Bone, Scheinbold, and Ross the Boss.
Hey, everybody, I'm Ross the Boss, and I want to talk baseball waiver wire with you, cowboy. July 4th weekend's coming up. Always figured that's like the halfway point in baseball. I know the All-Star game, the way I say the All-Star game is, but I always say July 4th. Guys, big surprises before we talk about waiver wire. Who's your team that's surprising you the most? Go.
Kasey, you want to start?
I think for me, it's them, the Cleveland Guardians. I think they've been pitching much better than anybody thought they would, and they're battling. I don't know if they're in first or just a couple games out of first in the Central with the White Sox. I guess they're the big surprise on the other direction. The AL Central, I guess, in overall has been the biggest surprise for me.
Yeah, listen, I mean, I would tell you who my biggest surprise is, but I'm just surprised that I'm out of bed. So I don't even know what's been happening. I got a text from Ross saying the Guardians just kept winning, and I was like, well, that's great, but I'm just trying to stay alive.
Huge winning streak, Dr. Dan Ratner. And to the White Sox have the easiest schedule coming up. I mean, going through September, the White Sox have the easiest. The Guardians, to me, $68 million payroll, and they're like battling for first place. I mean, I agree with Kasey Scheinfeld. That's the surprise team so far in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, I will say they have been a quality organization for a long, long time. So that part's not surprising.
And I think Jose Ramirez has to be the front runner for the AL MVP just because of how well the Guardians are playing. And you take him away from that team. Take him away from that team, and what are they?
No, Aaron Judge is the MVP of the American League right now.
Hey, this is coming from a Yankees fan. You can take Aaron Judge away and they can still battle for the top of that division. You take Jose Ramirez away and they are at best the fourth place team.
Okay, who do you have in the American League then, as the National League, as the MVP so far?
Right now, the National League MVP? Yeah. Could be Pete Alonso with his RBIs and home runs.
That's who I would go with.
And what he's doing.
This guy's hitting 340. He has over 20 home runs. He's a monster right now. Is Paul Goldschmidt of the St. Louis Cardinals.
That's a good name too.
And that's the MVP of the National League.
Okay, but what does that have to do with me saying Jose Ramirez is the National League MVP?
Because Aaron Judge is
it has nothing to do with it.
Guys, is this what happened when I was away?
Yes!
Oh gosh,
The entire time.
We're the odd couple.
We have a comment coming in, and then, of course, we are going to get some waiver wire ads because that's what people are here for. Chris Atwater, it's good to see you here, my friend.
Chris, again, you ruined my wedding. You got drunk.
Oh, my God, the wedding thing again.
Carried you out. It was unbelievable.
Chris Atwater says, Dr. Dan's boy, Justin, had a decent outing on the mound today, and the Guardians win with a walk-off. So, again, I'm just happy that I'm upright, so I'm still learning about these things. But thanks for the shout-out, Chris. Now, he says Dr. Dan's boy Justin had a decent outing. Guys, what's he talking about?
What do you mean, what's he talking about?
Which Justin is he talking about? Come on, we got to tell the viewers.
Oh, which Justin is he talking about? That.
Is this a Verlander reference? I'm telling you, you have no idea how.
Well, Verlander was the first pitcher to have 10 wins. Is that who he's talking about?
That's the thing I'm asking. So, Chris,
I don't know. I can't read minds.
I'm in a complete haze.
He's talking about Justin Bieber.
Justin Bieber. Oh, my God.
AKA your boy Bieber on your team.
Maybe that is what he's talking about, Shane Bieber. Okay, well, listen. I am up to speed on who to add for waiver wire. Because even from the COVID half deathbed, I was still trying to compete in fantasy leagues. So we're going to talk about top pickups, 60% and under in rostership. And yes, he was talking about Bieber. Good job, Kasey. You picked it up. Sorry, Chris. I'm in a COVID fog, a little dense here. So, top 4 pickups. Any players you could add? Ross, we'll start with you.
Well, Kasey picked him as our cover boy. I mean, Isaac Paredes he's a mighty mite. I talked to him about him last week. This guy, he's not a midget, but he's close. I'm just kidding. He's a little person. I just said that to get arousal out of my co-host. But he's like hitting over 300 the past 2 weeks. He has home runs. He steals bases. this guy's the real deal, and they don't play him every day, so got to be aware of that. But he's playing unbelievable. He's my number one pickup. I agree. I also like this guy, Rowdy Teles of the Milwaukee Brewers. He looks like a softball player. He's 6'4". He must weigh 280. I mean, this guy is like a moose. I mean, he's huge. But he's hitting bombs like crazy. I think he has 5 home runs for the week. He's unbelievable. Graham Ashcroft, I love. He's a Red. Not one bad outing since he took the mound for the Reds as a starter. He's pitching great. I think he pitches today, actually, against the Cubs, Graham Ashcroft. I love that guy. And my last one, I talked about last week, I love Andrew McCutchen. He's not the MVP he was years ago, but the past 2 weeks, he's hitting over 300, and he's solid. I mean, every game he comes to play. I love that guy, and he's my must pick up for the week.
Interesting. I mean, I think of him as a streaker, and he's definitely on a streak. I think he's the 22nd ranked overall player over the last 2 weeks, so he's looking quite good right now. But I don't look to invest too heavily in him. Casey, who are your top 4?
Well, I like a few of those. I'm going to name Juan Lopez again because this is a guy for the Cardinals who's been streaky, but he qualifies at third base. And right now he's hot. 324, 4 home runs, 11 RBIs in the last 2 weeks. And he can get you that at third base, which, as we all know, there's a dearth of good third baseman right now. I'm also going to say Alex Kerloff. I know he's not a sexy name, called up for the Twins a couple weeks ago, finally healthy. And just in the 2 weeks he's been up, he has 12 RBIs and is batting .320. This is a guy who led the minors in home runs a few years ago. So it's not like he's a stranger to production. He was their top prospect when they first called him up a few years back. And then Jon Gray in Texas. I think I talked about him last week. He's got to be the happiest guy in baseball as far as pitchers to be out of Colorado after all those years. And he's paying dividends. He's the 13th ranked starter in the last 2 weeks in Yahoo. He's got a strikeout per inning, 3 wins, less than a 1 whip. That's pretty darn good. And then Paul Sewald. Dan, you loved this guy last year. You loved him at the beginning of this year. He's like the least known closer in baseball, but he's just got great peripherals, great numbers all across. And he's got 3 saves in the last week with a 0 ERA and a 0 whip. It's hard to compete with that.
Great names, guys. You took some from my list. One of my top guys is Jaron Duran. I know he's NA right now, but that's actually just because he doesn't have his vaccination status. So but he's really been starting to play, and he's batted over the last 2 weeks, .371, and he's got 4 stolen bases. And I just think he's going to be a big spark plug. So again, it's always about what do you need, but if you're looking for stolen bases with actual good peripherals, Jaron Duran is a great guy to add. Meanwhile, the Cardinals have Dylan Carlson back. He's been hitting great over the last 2 weeks, and he's a guy who's put up big numbers, certainly all last year. He's down to 40. He's at 47%, but that number's going to rise. You want to snatch him up while you can. And by the way, I will say Alex Kerloff also was on my list, and I don't think he is an unsexy name. As long as you remember not to have such a short memory, this guy was a very, very huge top prospect like a year and a half ago. It's not, and he's hitting really well. I agree with you on Jon Gray, by the way. I think he's got to be so happy to be out of Colorado. Closer to add, though, I would say Will Smith is the guy that I would target. He's 47% rostered. Kenley Jansen had a recurrence of the heart issues that he's been having. Very scary, and our hearts go out to him. Pun intended, I guess. But really, it's a serious condition, and Kenley Jansen has often been out for a long period of time. And some people say that Will Smith isn't necessarily going to be the guy, that A.J. Minter is going to be. I don't buy that at all. Will Smith was the closer on that team before Kenley Jansen came in. He's done it throughout, and he's still pitching pretty well. So I would scoop him up. Tanner Rainey, another guy. He's stayed almost exactly the same rostership all year. He's just like 47%, and it's because he's on a team that doesn't get a lot of saves. He's also going to get traded away. So you do need to be aware of that. That's why I pick up Will Smith before Tanner Rainey. Lastly, here's a starter to take a chance on. Jose Suarez of the Angels. He's looking really, really good the last 2 weeks. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be a cornerstone of your team, but his strikeout rate is insane, and he's pitching very well right now. I would take a chance on him, especially if it's in a good matchup. Okay, let's move into positional discussions. We're going to go straight to catcher. Ross, I'm going to start with you. If you had to pick up one catcher, who would it be?
You know what? He plays for your Detroit Tigers. He's a young stud, actually. Eric Husey. past 2 weeks, Casey Scheinfeld?
Or
is it Hasi?
Wow, we're a mess.
It's Hasi.
Husi, I thought, with the U. Okay,
No,
Eric.
There is no U.
2 A's.
Hasi. 323, 3 home runs, 9 RBIs the past 2 weeks. Detroit can hit. I mean, they're a bad team overall, but they do have some hitters on their team. As you know, I love Spencer Torkelson because he went to an unbelievable college called Arizona State. They also have a few other really good hitters too, but I like him. I also like Jonah Heim. Is that correct? For Texas?
I think it's Heim.
Jonah's been hitting 273 with 3 home runs and 7 RBIs the past 2 weeks. Every time I want to drop him, I can't because he just gets hot. And right now he's on a kind of a streak right now. So he's a streaker. But if you need catching, and people always do, pick up Jonah or Eric.
Every time I want to drop Jonah Heim, I can't because I don't own him.
It's tougher. That does increase the challenge.
But he actually has been a very underrated player. By the way, Chris Atwater says, love Duran, Jaron Duran, and good to see you back, Dr. Dan. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it.
Oh, the Red Sox fan.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well,
that's a shot.
Hey, wow. But you know, Chris also, I got to give him credit. He is a Red Sox fan, but he's also a realist. He'll tell you it like it is. He told us the Red Sox pitching staff, terrible, and he was not wrong. And their bullpen, for that matter.
And Chris Sale will be back by October.
And how many wins will he have? Remember last year? You were like, 0 wins.
You're right.
Okay, so my top pickup at catcher is still MJ Melendez.
Is he under 60% still?
He's still 48% roster.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
I don't even look for him because I don't understand that he.
What's he hitting right? I'm just curious. What's his batting average?
Well, over the last 2 weeks, he's hitting 228.
Right.
I understand why his numbers are down, but the thing is, you got to remember, still, catcher is a very thin position. MJ Melendez he's got a great opportunity. He's going to play a lot because Salvador Perez is on the IR. So he's my top pickup at catcher. Casey, who do you have?
I'm going to go to some, I guess they're retreads because we talk about them week in and week out, but they're not great players, but they don't hurt you. And when I'm looking at catcher, that's sometimes what I'm looking at. And that's Jorge Alfaro in San Diego. He doesn't have 1 home run and 8 RBIs, but he's batting 280. And to get a 280 out of a catcher is pretty impressive. And then Gabriel Moreno in Toronto. Alejandro Kirk is arguably the best catcher in the American League right now. But Kirk plays a lot of DH, and Moreno is their top prospect. They called him up a few weeks ago, and he's batting in the last 2 weeks. He's batting almost 300, 296. He's not hitting for a lot of power, but he's getting on base consistently and he's scoring runs. And so that's something that can help you.
By the way, if I had heard the quote, Alejandro Kirk is the best hitting catcher in baseball at the beginning of the season, I would have been like, who? What's happening?
I know, but he's been insane.
Oh, he's been completely insane.
He's been hitting bombs almost every day.
This happens every year. There's standout players at all kinds of positions. Josh Bell's doing it at first base. That's a good lead into first base, actually. Obviously, you can't scoop up Josh Bell off waivers at this point. But guys, who do you have?
But if you could, scoop him up.
If you could, definitely scoop him up. Casey, who do you have at first base if you had to scoop up something? I know that Ross already mentioned Rowdy Teles.
Ross mentioned Rowdy Teles. I think that's a big one. I think Nathaniel Lowe in Texas has been doing a good job. He's still only 48% owned, batting almost 290 in the last 2 weeks alone. He hits for power. He drives and runs. He bats in the middle of that order. So that's one name I would offer. And the other one is the guy I said in my short this week, and that's Vinny Pasquantino, the top prospect for Kansas City, who just got called up this week. In the minors, he had 17 home runs and 65 RBIs or 67 RBIs already. The guy's proven he can hit. He's a power hitter who drives and runs. They shipped Santana out. Finally, I think he went to Seattle. And now first base and DH position is his. So he's going to get every day at bats. And this is a guy who can be a difference maker throughout the rest of the season.
Nice. Now we have a question coming in. Keep or trade Adley Rutschman? I have Christian Vasquez. Okay, so this is important because he does have a good backup. If it's
is it a redraft league or a keeper league?
Okay, that's a great question. You always have to assess that. But even so, I would say you trade him either way, because in a keeper league, I don't really love having a catcher no matter how good they are. It's not the way that I usually go in a keeper league. In a redraft league, what it really is going to depend on is what is the trade value like in your league? How are people valuing him? So if people are valuing his name above what his performance is, I think you deal him. a deal from strength. You've got
Alley's starting to hit. I mean, he started out very slow. We all know that. Took him a while to hit his first home run. He's starting to hit. I predict, and you heard it from me first, he's going to have a great second half, and he's going to be a must keeper in most leagues.
Yeah, for me, I would trade him if I could get the value for him. If it's a redraft league,
you're not going to get it.
If it's a keeper league, I'm keeping him just because, like.
Well, listen though,
you talk about position value. If you get somebody who could be a middle of the order producer at catcher that you can have year in and year out, that's such a leg up in a keeper or a dynasty league.
I mean, in our little league that we play with Chris, and it's a keeper league, we keep 6. I would probably keep Adley. I mean, as we all know, catchers are very, very scarce, and this guy is supposed to be the future, and I believe in him 100%. And I would keep him for next year.
Look, if I said to you, Dan, it's 1999 or 1998, Mike Piazza, was he a keeper?
Oh, no, he definitely was. But
he was
they're
very, very 35th round.
Right. But well, that's not the point. The point is he's so much more valuable because of his catcher eligibility in a keeper league. In a redraft league, and you have Christian Vasquez, who's going to bat 280, knock in 15 home runs, drive in 80 RBIs, score 80 runs. That's crazy valuable at catcher and good enough. But Christian Vasquez has no value in the offseason. Right?
But when was the last time we saw a catcher actually put up numbers like Mike Piazza? Because it just doesn't happen.
Well, Salvador Perez last year put up some pretty good numbers.
Salvador Perez had 40-something home runs. I mean,
but would you keep
recent memory.
I wouldn't have kept him, even after that. No way.
Well, I wouldn't have kept him because he was like 34 playing 150 games at catcher. We're talking about a 23-year-old who has fresher legs and hips and knees and ankles and everything else.
Listen, I'm just saying, I think, this is just my feeling, I think that his value is coming up right now, and sometimes people want to pounce on the value while it's coming up. If you can get full value for him right now, as if he's been playing this well for like 2 months, I think you take it, especially in a redraft.
Yeah, I mean, I probably would waive him right now if it was a redraft league, though. In a redraft league.
Yeah. All right. We got to get back to first base.
Okay.
One guy that I think is definitely worth, and listen, over the past 2 weeks, he's batting 194. So I think you believe I'm recommending this guy, but
no.
Christian Walker, still, it all depends on what you need. This guy is putting up huge power numbers.
Yep.
He's going to find a place on a lot of teams. I'd probably prefer to take a chance on Alex Kerloff or Rowdy Teles, but Christian Walker not far behind. Ross, who do you got?
Seth Brown. He's no clown. Seth Brown. He's my man. Seth Brown plays first base. He plays left field. He plays outfield. He plays center. He plays everywhere. This guy, Seth Brown. Seth Brown, the past 2 weeks, Kasey Scheinfeld, 350 he's hitting. Not bad. 2 home runs, RBIs, stolen base. I mean, Seth Brown, no one knows who he is. He plays in one of the smallest markets. You know what market he plays in, Kasey Scheinfeld?
The same as your hat, my friend.
The Oakland A's, Kasey Scheinfeld. But Seth Brown is getting hot. He's a streaker. If you're having problems at first base right now, probably not, unless you're a complete moron. But if you are, Seth Brown's a streaker. He can play outfield too. So Seth Brown's a good pickup this week if you need somebody to play outfield at first base.
All right, let's move to second base. Our cover boy is a second base and third base eligibility, so maybe we talk about him during third base, since third base is
whatever you want to do.
But Case, I'll start with you. Who would you pick up at second base?
Well, I'm going to name a current major leaguer and then a prospect. Okay, and it's the same prospect I've said for two weeks in a row. But Nico Horner right now in Chicago is playing really well, and this is a guy who was known for having a hit tool and getting on base. He's batting 400 in the last couple weeks, scoring runs, only has 1 home run. He's never been known for his power. But at second base, you can do a lot worse than him. And then the same guy I talked about twice now is Estiri Ruiz in San Diego. Ross last week said he's probably a late season call-up. He is trying to prove to everybody that he needs to come up right now. On the season, he's batting .345 with 13 home runs and 52 stolen bases. In the last 19 games since he's been called up to AAA, he's got 15 stolen bases and a 1.038 OPS. He is just tearing the cover off the ball. Trent Grisham is not playing that well. It's not like their outfield defense couldn't use the speed of Estiri Ruiz. Even though he qualifies at second, they started playing him in the outfield in San Antonio right now, or El Paso where he is right now. I don't see any reason why you don't give this guy a try, especially they're in that battle with the Dodgers for first place out there. It's kind of a dogfight. Machado is hurt. Tatis is not back yet. Grisham is faltering. There's no reason not to give this guy a chance.
All right, we've got a question coming in. Is Espinal of the Toronto Blue Jays worth a wire move? Is he worth a pickup right now, Ross?
I love Toronto's lineup. He had a big hit last night for an RBI. I like him. I mean, I think it's a good pickup. I don't know who your other players are, obviously, but I like Espinal a lot. And yes, I would pick him up if you have room on your roster to play him, 100%.
I totally agree. And,
Ross owns him, by the way. Just so you know.
Well, some of it is
there's a little bit of homer value. Look,
I love that, guys. I brag about that Toronto lineup. I mean,
he has been terrible the last couple weeks. So just understand that.
I haven't been playing him. I haven't, but he's
batting 140 with only 2 runs scored, no home runs, no stolen bases.
He's due.
Okay, but see, that's the thing. If you believe in the player and they're just having a down couple of weeks, pick him up now. It's a great time to do it. And I think because he has second base and third base eligibility, it's a great pickup.
Yeah.
I disagree, just so it's on the record.
That's fine. Right. No, you got to have a feeling sometimes, and it makes sense. You've been feeling about a player that's going to start hitting.
I just think he doesn't have the track record, and maybe the league has started to figure him out. Right? It's kind of like Nestor Cortez for the Yankees. The first 12 starts of the season, he was. They nicknamed him Nasty Nestor because nobody could touch him. The last 4 starts, I think he's averaging 3 or 4 runs given up per start, because I think over time, once they have enough video on you, they figure you out, and maybe they figured out Espinal.
Okay, but you got to remember, sometimes they then figure out the rest of the league back. They make an adjustment. So,
and I did order a Cortez T-shirt that has the mustache on it, Casey. Nice. To make you jealous.
Oh, there you go.
But I just love this guy so much. I had to order the T-shirt, so I'll wear it as soon as I get it. Don't worry, Casey.
Here's another guy whose value has probably come down because his last couple of weeks have not been so good. But I still think Christopher Morell is he's still a great pickup. He's 49% rostered. He's got second base and third base eligibility as well as outfield. Or if you're playing in leagues that only play like one particular outfield position, it's center field. I understand he slipped to 9th in the order last night. That makes people very worried. But I don't tend to worry too much about that. He had been in the leadoff spot for the Cubs for a long time. I still think he's a great pickup at second base. He's been putting up really good numbers all season. Ross, who would you add?
Well, Ross, let me ask you a question first. What about your Cincinnati Reds and Nick Senzel?
I love Nick Senzel. Is he second baseman too? He's been playing center field a lot.
Yeah, but he qualifies at second and outfield.
I mean, Nick's been the past 2 weeks. He's hitting really well. I mean, he's been on fire and
3 stolen bases.
And last year he had a horrible injury. He was out for a long time, but he's back, and he was one of their top prospects years ago. I like Nick. Especially in that ballpark, the Great American Ballpark. It's like a joke to hit in because the fences are so short. I think it's a good pickup. I think he's available like 90% of the leagues almost. So yeah, I mean, if he's available at second base, it's not a bad guy to pick up. I agree with you, Case.
One guy I do want to mention is Gavin Lux. I do think that his numbers are looking.
I have him on my list.
Yeah, and he's looking good over the last 2 weeks. One caveat though, he's batting .341. Is that really going to keep up? He's not, but he's not stealing. He's not stealing a lot of bases. So.
He's not. There's no power. There's no RBIs, but he's hitting .341.
A lot of it depends on what you need. I don't trust that average. That's all.
When they brought him up last year or 2 years ago, he was like the top prospect for the Dodgers. I mean, he was like it.
All right, we're going to go to shortstop in a second, but we do have another comment coming in. Did you see Grisham lean into a pitch last night to try and get a walk? Haha. Guess that's what you do when you can't hit. Well, listen. In fairness to Grisham, he is a 75-year-old author. No, that's John Grisham. I'm sorry.
That's John Grisham.
And it's not Marquise Grissom, because he probably leaned into a few too way back.
That's even a totally different last name. Yeah. But you're right, Chris. People do lean in. Although remember, Don Baylor of the Red Sox, he was like the all-time leader in hits by pitches. Yeah. And
Anthony Rizzo's trying to catch him.
And also the great Rudy Stein that played for the Bad News Bears. The coach said, You lean into that pitch and get hit. And what did Rudy do? He got hit by the pitch, and they won the game. Take that, Casey Scheifele.
Rudy Stein. Okay, shortstops. Ross, we'll start with you.
Shortstop for me this week was very sparse, not the greatest position. Casey mentioned him at second base, but I too had Nico Horner. He's hitting .400 the past 2 weeks. with a home run and 7 RBIs. But at shortstop, people under 60%, there were some multi-position guys that can play both. But I just put Nico there as my shortstop this week.
I mean, he's the number 7th ranked player overall just in the last week. Another guy that I wanted to mention is Luis Urias of the Milwaukee Brewers. He qualifies as second base, third base, and shortstop. And
I had him as a
really
second base
right now. So, over the last 7 days, he's hitting .316. He's got 2 homers. I think they were in the same game, actually, if I'm not recalling it correctly. But you could do a lot worse than that pickup, as far as I'm concerned. Kasey, who would you add?
Well, I'm going to add a prospect. I'm going to go hometown and say Oswaldo Peraza of the New York Yankees. I know Anthony Volpe gets all the pub because he probably has a higher ceiling, but Peraza is in AAA and is a better player right now. And with all due respect to Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, who I really like as a player, he's not doing it in New York right now. He plays pretty good defense, but his offense has been terrible. I think he has like a 350 slug or 315 slug right now.
Sure.
Peraza in the last 10 games for AAA has a 1.3 OPS, 439 average, has a couple home runs, stolen bases. In the last 30 games for AAA, he's batting over 270 with 5 home runs and I believe 8 stolen bases, and he plays just as good a defense. I think the Yankees are either going to be in the market for a shortstop, which they're going to have to pay using those prospects and pay a lot of money, or they can do the internal thing and call Peraza up. If you have the NA spot on your roster or a lot of kind of weak players on the bench, I think he'd be a smart pickup to get somebody in that stadium, in that lineup, who can produce.
One guy that I would add, and this is a guy I'm kind of just taking a chance on in redraft leagues and keeper leagues. I think he should be scooped up everywhere, is C.J. Abrams. I know he's not hitting well. He hasn't hit well all year, except in the minors. And he's going to come around. I believe in the kid. I think he's a good pickup, and now's the time to invest in him for a little bit if you have a free roster spot. Guys, let's move on to third base. Third base has been the thinnest position all year, but I have to say it didn't feel as thin this week as some other positions as I started to look at some options. Ross, who would you start with?
Well, I talked about him today on our website. I gave my waiver wire pickup of the week is Evan Longoria. He's been in the league a long time. I mean, he's not new. But the past week, he's been hitting .324 with 3 home runs and 6 RBIs. I mean, this guy's a professional hitter.
Past 2 weeks.
Past 2 weeks. This guy's a professional hitter. I mean, this guy knows how to hit. If he's healthy, he's great, and I believe he's healthy. I like Evan a lot right now. He's a streaker, but the Giants are scoring runs, and he's a big part of it. And he used to play for the Dirtbags, Long Beach State. So I like him, and he's from Downey, California, so I like him more. Also, a guy that Kasey mentioned is Juan Lopez. Past 2 weeks, .324 with 4 home runs, 11 RBIs. That's solid. I mean, you can't do better than that. So both those guys at third base, if you need a third baseman or your guy got hurt or something happened, either one of those 2 guys are good pickups right now.
Yeah, Lopez went through a really rough period for maybe 3 weeks or something, but he was tearing the cover out the ball before, and he seems to be returning to form.
Yeah.
And if you're going to pick him up, it's for third base, clearly. So, Kasey, I'll let you talk about our cover boy.
Yep.
Okay, our cover boy is Paredes, right? Isaac
Paredes.
Paredes.
Man, I put you on the spot.
Sorry, you did.
I mean,
obviously, he's turned into kind of the Ben Zobrist of a decade ago for the Tampa Bay Rays when they needed that guy who could play everywhere and just hit and play defense no matter where he played. And that's Paredes. He qualifies at second and third. He's hitting for power, 5 home runs, 9 RBIs, batting almost 350. I'm a big fan of him. I was actually going to, I like Lopez. I talked about him at the start, but I'm going to mention again, a prospect I've been talking about for weeks now. And for those of you who haven't figured it out, and Dan's known this for a long time, I'm a big fan of following prospects and keeping an eye on that. But that's Miguel Vargas of the Dodgers. Max Muncy and Justin Turner aren't exactly imposing fear and performing all that well. But on top of that, you got Mookie Betts hurt. Trace Thompson and Eddie Alvarez are not exactly championship caliber players either. And they just started this week playing Miguel Vargas in the outfield. I think they're grooming him for a call up soon. he's in the last, he's 2 home runs, 6 walks to 5 strikeouts, a 358 average during his 10-game hitting streak that he's currently on. On the season, he's got 8 stolen bases to go with 12 home runs. This guy's proven he's ready. They're just trying to find a spot for him. So I would scoop him up if I could.
All right. Now, in the interest of time, I'm going to move on from third base because we've covered some guys. I already mentioned some third base guys. So we're going to move to outfield, but we do have a question from Chris Atwater. He says, why is Ross the Boss wearing a bulletproof vest in the gym on his background?
Thank you. I wanted that to be the picture for him, like his avatar.
Yeah. I'm looking. Was someone threatening you, Ross? What was happening?
Yes, I get a lot of death. No, it's a weighted vest. So when I work out, I walk around with like 40 pounds on my body. So I burn more calories. If I'm doing cardio, I wear it. So it's part of the uniform when I work out.
Okay, so that was his answer to cover over the fact that he's in the witness protection program.
Yes.
And next week you'll hear his voice.
Yeah. Oh, there's a shadow. You'll just see a shadow.
They changed it to Ross the Boss from some other mafia name.
All right, guys, outfielders. Ross, I'll go to you first.
Well, I mentioned Andrew McCutchen, 302, 3 home runs, 7 RBIs in the past 2 weeks. I mentioned him. He was an MVP with the Pirates years ago, but you know what? He's starting to hit. I mean, he's solid. I picked him up in a few leagues, and I'm starting him. I have that much faith in him. Milwaukee's a really good team if they're healthy. So I like him. I like this guy, Robbie Grossman. I know you went to his bar mitzvah, Dan.
That's right.
L'chaim.
Robbie Grossman's, he's actually not Jewish. I looked it up. He's from Texas, and he's not Jewish. But Robbie Grossman's starting to hit the long ball. The past 2 weeks, 2 home runs, hitting 273. He's starting to hit. Plays in Detroit. I know the horrible team. Horrible. But that all being said, I do like Robbie Grossman. If you need an outfielder, he can't hurt you. He can steal bases also. And somebody else, you've been mentioning him all the whole day. Alex Kerloff, you've been saying his name all day. So those are the 3 guys I like at outfield this week that are under 60%.
All right. Now, I already mentioned Dylan Carlson and Jaron Duran as 2 of my top pickups, 2 of my top 4 pickups overall. So those would be the main guys I'd mention here. Kasey, how about you?
If you want to take a flyer, Jared Kelenic is heating up again in the minor leagues in Seattle. They've been looking. I mean, he was their top prospect. He was the big piece in the Mets trade for Edwin Diaz. Julio Rodriguez has certainly shown that he's there to stay in Seattle. But Kelenic was supposed to be that centerpiece with him in that offense for years to come. And he's cut his strikeout percentage by more than 12%. He might be somebody to watch. Speed, power guy who, when he comes up, he could produce and produce big.
Meanwhile, I just have to mention Julio Rodriguez. What a season this guy is.
Oh, my gosh. It's insane. Yeah.
I mean, he's a rookie, and he's a rookie for sure. Count him in, rookie of the year.
But, also he's running a lot, and that's he's running and hitting.
For fantasy purposes, yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, he hits a home run like every other game. I mean, he's just on a tear right now, too. I love that kid.
Yep. All right, guys, let's move to starting pitcher. We want to make sure to get some starting pitchers and relief pitchers because then, Ross, I know you want to play the game.
We're playing a big game. Atwater wants your opinion also, so stay tuned.
All right. So, relief pitchers, Kasey, who would you start with? And we did mention a couple.
I mentioned John Gray. Obviously, I'm a big fan of him. I'm going to mention a couple prospects and let you guys focus on the major leaguers. I'm going to go with he's back again. I talked about him earlier in the season. Then he was hurt with a nerve issue, but he's back. Max Meyer for the Marlins. Trevor Rogers is in a tailspin. The Castano and Garrett are their 4 and 5 right now, and they're just kind of placeholders. I mean, he's back. He's pitching great again. If you noticed, he struck out Wander Franco twice during Franco's rehab appearance with him with that slider, and he didn't look like he was even close to hitting whatever Meyer was throwing. The other one is Brian Bello. The guy's just been a stud in Boston's minor leagues. As we all know, as Chris Atwater told us at the beginning of the year, their starting pitching has been terrible. Bello's already on the 40-man roster. He's been lighting it up. There's no reason that you shouldn't take a flyer on him either.
Ross, who would you mention?
Graham Ashcroft, I mentioned earlier. He's been unhittable he's been pitching great for the Reds. ERA around 3. He pitches today. Just pitches 5-6 innings, gives up 1 or 2 runs. Solid. Chris Archer, he's supposed to be like this next big thing got hurt, been moved around a little bit. Now he's in Minnesota. He's his ERA is like 3.14 for the year. I know he's 2-3, but he's been pitching really well the past couple of weeks. Ronnie Garcia of Detroit, another Tigers. God, Tigers are like my team. I don't know why. The past 2 weeks, he's 3-0 with an ERA of 2.76. He's a streaker, but he's been pitching really well. And the other one you guys mentioned earlier is John Gray. 3-0 the past 2 weeks, 1.37 ERA. Solid. In Texas, another guy they have that's over 60%, but I got to mention is Martin Perez. I mean, I don't know how he turned it around. I mean, he's pitching like he wants that Cy Young. I don't know what he's doing, but he's pitching.
He's one. Great. He should be in your segment on Do You Trust It?
I don't. I've been starting him on our fantasy league.
Oh, I'm sure he's been helpful, but God, that he scares me.
I mean,
how far do you
figured it out? He really figured it out in Texas.
Yeah, I don't know.
He's one of the front runners, I think, for the Cy Young in the American League. You heard it from me first. And, in the National League, you can't go wrong with the Marlins pitcher, Sandy
Alcantara.
He's my Cy Young pick in the National League. He's pitching unbelievable. But, yes, so those are my starting pitching guys that you got to pick up.
All right, we have a question coming in about Josiah Gray and whether we trust him. He has been pitching well recently. I did have him on my list over the last 2 weeks. A 1.38 ERA, 13 strikeouts and 13 innings pitched. No wins to show for it, but with that team, it can be tough. But listen, again, look at the standings where you are. Do you need that or not? And by the way, I'm really coming around to more and more quality start leagues are the way to go. Wins are just maddening, and quality starts are the way to go. George Kirby has been struggling. I would not cut bait with him. He hasn't been struggling that much. I would hold on to him. There's also 3 injured pitchers that I've met. Actually, is it 3 or 4? I'm going to mention some injured pitchers. Here we go. Lance McCullers Jr. supposed to come back sometime in July. It's looking like he's a really useful arm to bring back. Drew Rasmussen, I'm not as high on. I think he was starting to fade. I think the league was starting to figure him out, but I'd pick him up. I think he's an okay pickup. Dustin May also working his way back. Huge talent. There is another injured pitcher, but I'm actually going to mention him in relief pitching because that's actually where he's going to come back, even though he's a starter. So let's move to relief pitching, and I'll start it off right away, and then I'll kick it to you guys. Garrett Whitlock. Sounds like he's coming back as a relief pitcher. Is he the answer at the back of that pen? If he is, he could be a dominant reliever. Either way, I think he's worth a pickup. Guys, who do you have at relief pitcher?
We mentioned both of them, Rainey and Sewald, Paul. I mean, we mentioned both these guys. I mean, those are the 2 top pickups that are under.
Don't forget Will Smith.
Are you not as high? Will Smith is a good one.
I had Will Smith.
I overlooked him, so that's a good pick. I don't
trust Will Smith. That's me because I have personal experience with Will Smith on my team. But I think Atlanta has a few guys that can get save opportunities. But I could be wrong. But Will Smith is just his arm's getting tired. But I love Sewald, Rainey. As you mentioned, I think he'll be traded by the All-Star break. He'll go to a contender, might be a closer somewhere. So both those guys are pretty good pickups right now.
So I'll say this: tune in to the waiver wire. Maybe in about 2 weeks, we're going to start mentioning guys to roster who are about to gain in value because trades are coming. So whoever's behind Tanner Rainey, you're going to need to know that. Go ahead.
Yeah, the only other reliever who might be worth rostering, I think, is Sir Anthony Dominguez. In Philadelphia. They desperately need a closer. Corey Knebel hasn't been able to do it. Maybe he'll get it back. But right now in the last 2 weeks, Dominguez has a couple saves with a 0 ERA and a 0 whip. He's striking out a batter per inning. So he's done it in the past. And so if he can figure it out, certainly they're going to need somebody at the back end of that bullpen.
Yeah, and Corey Knebel isn't looking that good anyway.
So, horrible.
Chris Atwater said, guess you missed Kirby's start on Monday when you were down with COVID. He gave up 27 home runs and struck out nobody. Terrible out. So, Chris Atwater sometimes exaggerates in a similar way to how Ross exaggerates how many times Chris Atwater went to his wedding.
If I've told you 1 billion times, I've told you to stop exaggerating.
That's right. Okay, so Ross, we've got some time for your game.
Let's hear it. America's new big sensation, cut, trade, or keep. So I'll mention a player, and some of them are obvious you're going to keep them, but do you want to trade them because their value is really high right now, or do you want to save them? And let's say we're doing a keeper league where you can keep 6 people. So we'll put that in there too, just so you guys know. So the first one is who's Paul Goldschmidt. You're saying, well, I'm not cutting him. No kidding. He's hitting 342, 19 home runs, 65 RBIs. I don't think he's going to keep this up. I mean, I don't think he's going to hit 340 for the year. So as much as I would love him to do it, but he's not going to do it. What would you guys do with Paul Goldschmidt now? Keep him or trade him?
Now, wait, did you say that we're gonna assume this is a keeper league?
I'll say it's a keeper league, just so we can all be on the same page. Yes.
In a keeper league, I almost certainly trade him immediately. I mean, he's an older player playing I wouldn't say way over his head because he's been a great player, but
yeah, this is his prime. He's putting up prime numbers again.
But in a keeper league, I would cash in now.
Okay.
I guess, the answer to everything's going to be it depends. I hate to be that difficult guy, but if I'm in contention, I want to keep him. If I'm not in contention, I'm trading him.
Let's say there's 12 teams and you're in third place.
Then I'm keeping him.
Well, but wait, Kasey, because you could deal him and get enough back that you can still be in contention. I'm not saying just you automatically sell him, just to sell him off. But let's say you could get, who's a good example of a decent first, a pretty
let's
solid.
You can get Michael Harris the second, and you can get, I'm trying to think who's like a good player, like Luke Voigt or something like that stature.
If it's a keeper league, no. If I'm trading him in a keeper league, even if I'm getting good value, I've got to get a keeper back. I don't think Michael Harris in a 6-person keeper league has proven to be a top, 75 player yet. And Luke Voigt, no. You'd have to sweep me off my feet.
Dan would trade him. Kasey would keep him.
Yeah, okay. But in trading him, let's say I wanted to stay in contention, but I wanted to make keeper gains. Maybe you get, Rowdy Teles and Ozzie Albies, because Ozzie Albies is hurt. You've just made a major keeper.
Oh, sure, you've made a keeper upgrade, but if I'm in contention, I just took a guy who's on the 60-day.
I don't want to sell out.
Like that. All right, go ahead. Moving on.
Ross, who's next?
So Byron Buxton, he plays for the Twins, 20 home runs, only 36 RBIs, which isn't that great, but he's hitting 235. Every year we always talk about Byron Buxton, how he's going to have a big, huge breakout year, and he's the future and everything. I mean, would you guys keep him?
I think Ross has said he'd cut him. That was his way of saying cut him.
You don't cut him, but would you trade him right now, or do you just sit on him and just take the 235 average and the measly 36 RBIs? What would you do?
I would, if it were up to me, I would sit on him until closer to the trade deadline. And then assuming if he's playing better and his value increased and he's suddenly healthy at the trade deadline, I would probably trade him then. If not, I would just keep him throughout the year.
In a keeper league, it is tough to let him go with the amount of upside that he has. But in a redraft league, the minute he starts to play really, really well, I'm dealing him because he's an injury away from
I'm not disagreeing.
Value.
Okay, this guy won the MVP a few years ago, plays for the Milwaukee Brewers, Christian Yelich.
Cut him.
He's hitting 252, 7 home runs, 27 RBIs for the year. Cut him, keep him, or trade him?
I'm cutting him.
Love it. Dr. Dan Ratner?
For anyone out there who is not as familiar with Kasey's dry sense of humor, he is not cutting Christian Yelich.
That's not true. Maybe he would. What's the point of keeping him if he's hitting low numbers and he's not getting any better?
So what you're saying is cut him in the offseason, not now.
Are you saying cut him now?
Available, I don't know. That's a great question. I would be frustrated if I had him. I don't have him on my team, but I'll be frustrated. And there's so many great players out there right now, especially like we mentioned a bunch of them on waiver wire today.
But he's playing pretty well. I mean, like there's not a chance in hell anybody would cut Christian Yelich.
He's 250 and has 7 home runs. So it's not that well.
Even in a redraft league, I mean, for the season, he is the 30th ranked player overall.
Okay, here's another guy in the same position as.
What am I missing?
Because he had 12 stolen bases. Ross is leaving out a very important stat there.
Exactly.
And in the last 2 weeks, he's batting almost 300.
So let's say for the year he hits 250, has 18 home runs, and has 60 RBIs.
And he's a 2020. He's practically a 2020 guy. Nobody's going to cut that.
Yeah, I guess. Okay.
I mean,
you guys answer.
It's about whether to cut him or not.
Cattell Marte, is that how you say it, Case?
Yes.
So he's been hurt a lot just for his defense, but he's hitting 264, 4 home runs, 4 stolen bases. What do you do with him?
I would trade him if you could. But I also would, this may surprise some people, but I would not be shy about cutting him.
No, I wouldn't either. He had one amazing season, and in the other, 6 or 7, he's been meh.
Yeah. No, there's just not that much there. And sometimes you're going to need a roster space because there's some player on there that is just, you're not going to be able to find him again. To me, Cattell Marte he's replaceable at this point. He really is.
Okay, the last one I did for Dr. Dan Ratner is because I just want to hear his reaction. That's how excited I am. He went to
Brady Sizemore.
No, this guy went to the University of Cincinnati. He plays for the Chicago Cubs. His name's Ian Happ. He's hitting .275, 8 home runs, and 5 stolen bases for the year. So he can run. He has some power. He plays in for the Cubs. Easy place, 8 home runs.
And what positions does he qualify at?
He qualifies. Well, I have him as an outfielder, but I believe he qualifies also at second base, I think.
Actually, he only qualifies in outfield right now.
Okay. So he only qualifies in outfield. And I know Dan, I want to hear Dan's response first. So Dan, what do you do with Ian Happ?
Well, Ian, hats off to you. You have proven to me that you are a player that is worth owning. And listen, I was high on Ian Happ when he first came up, but he burned me for so long that I lost interest. But I'll give you credit where credit's due. He is a very, very rosterable player that is probably still not going to be rostered on any of my teams just because I still don't trust him. But I'll give him credit. And do I think he's probably going to keep up doing what he's doing? I think he'll fade a little bit, but I think he's going to be a useful player. We have one comment coming in about Kettle Marte. Chris Atwater says, Marte is killing it now. He had a horrible May, but a fantastic June. You guys are so wrong on this one. So I'm going to pull up his numbers and take a look at what was this.
I don't think he's killing it either. I don't think he's killing it. I think that's the wrong adjective to use or the wrong verb.
Well, certainly he's not a murderer.
Yeah.
Actually, I mean, from what I'm looking at, he had a monstrous May.
Right.
And maybe
the
that's
last 2 weeks. It's not been killing it.
But I don't think if you had a monstrous month, you don't end up with only 4 home runs and 4 stolen bases on the season. The last 14 days, he's 4 for 19 with 3 runs scored and a 2.11 average. No RBIs, no stolen bases, no home runs.
I kind of think of Kettle Marte as like he's become almost like if you're an average fetishist and you just can't. Well,
if you
that's
remember,
what you're looking at.
He did have that year, not last year, the year before.
Oh, he was a monster
the last
that
full
1 year.
season. It was 2019.
Remember he had like 30-something home runs and 100
30 bags.
He had a monster year, and it caused the pandemic. And so we're not going to do
like
it
20
anymore.
stolen bases. I mean, he was a monster.
I think Atwater is thinking about Starling Marte.
Oh.
And whoever has him in our league.
No, I don't think so. I think he was listening all along.
No, I know.
He says he'll hit 300 for the season. I actually don't necessarily disagree with that. But 300 with an empty batting average, I'm not saying
300
right
with
away.
10 home runs, 9 stolen bases, and 40 RBIs is.
I'm just saying he's mostly replaceable in his overall.
Okay, so before we leave, Kasey made me a trade offer, and I like talking about trades just because we love giving people, our opinion and telling them if it's a good trade, bad trade. There's a lot of things we talk about. So Kasey, why don't you tell the audience what you offered me and why?
Well, I offered him his. We're in a keeper league. It's a 6-person keeper league, and his pitching is not very strong.
You
from
keep
a keeper
6 players. It's a 12-team keeper league.
Right. You keep 6 players. So he knows I'm a Yankee fan, so he can drive up the price. But I wanted Stanton. Stanton is hitting for power, but doing nothing else. And I just lost Bryce Harper on my team, so I needed to replace the home runs. So I offered him Mckenzie Gore, who has been pitching great as the rookie in San Diego, and why am I blanking on his name? The outfielder for Atlanta.
Azuna.
Oh, and Azuna for Logan Webb and Giancarlo Stanton. Webb was struggling a little bit. I thought he might be a buy low, but I then looked and he's been pitching better in the last 3 weeks. My thinking was he gets the best keeper out of the deal in a 24-year-old left-handed starting pitcher.
Right, but Webb's only 26, so it's not that big of age difference, but keep going.
And, well, I'm just telling you what my thinking was. And so, and Ozuna can replace everything that Stanton's doing for him this year except the home runs itself. He's actually hitting for a better average.
No, he's not. I don't think he's hitting for a better average. Is he, Kasey?
I thought it was. I'll look it up.
My man, Dr.
I have to say, to me, it sounds like a very, very smart offer. the question is it one you should take?
Right. So the problem is this. I mean, Stanton, I think the past 3 games has 3 home runs.
Yeah, but he has like 3 hits. So they just happen to be home runs.
And I believe he has more RBIs, more home runs, and has a batting average than Ozuna.
Okay. So yeah, there you go.
And then
listen, we're going to review
Webb. Webb and Gore. I'd rather have Webb just because.
There you go. That's why you said no.
More accomplished, but it wasn't a bad trade offer. But I just feel because of Stanton hitting with Judge and that whole Yankee lineup, and they're going to break the record. They just broke the record for the most home runs in any month. They just did it in June. The Yankees are just hitting it. The ball, every ball they hit's a home run. And
but in a keeper league, I'd take Mckenzie Gore over any of those players. So that's
interesting.
That's one of the reasons I think it's a really smart offer. But guys, we do have to wrap up here. We're going to continue next week. I'm going to be out, not due to COVID. I'm just actually going to be away.
Where are you going?
I'm going on vacation. The last time I went on vacation, I got COVID. So I hope
life is like a vacation.
Just you and me, buddy.
So guys, I'll miss you the next week, but I'll be back in 2 weeks.
Have a great trip. Have fun in Hawaii.
Happy Independence Day, everybody.
Happy Independence Day, everybody. And please put your comments below. We love talking fantasy sports with you. Thanks for joining us. Thank you, Kasey. Thank you, Ross the Boss. Good to see you again.